Okay, I just got a question about finding the acute angle between two lines in space. And someone said that they kept getting an obtuse angle. Okay, so let's think about this for just a second. If I have two lines in space, and I drew them on a plane because it's easier to represent that, but it holds true if we're in 3 dimensions. You'll notice that I've got an angle here, so we'll call that theta, and then I've got an obtuse angle here, we can call that phi or whatever. So odds are, here's probably, well, the reason, let me back up. The reason that they say find the acute angle between these two lines is because they want this one in particular and not that one. So that's what they're looking for. Now, there's a couple ways that we can make sure that that we have an acute angle. Okay, so when we talk about vectors, we were using the direction vector of this line and the direction vector of that line. Okay, so if this is D1 and this is D2, direction vector of line 1 and direction vector of line 2, notice if they're both going in that direction, what I'm going to end up getting is I'm going to get an acute angle. Well, remember, we have cosine of theta is equal to the dot product D1 times the dot product of D1 and D2 divided by the magnitude of D1 times the magnitude of D2. Okay, so if it could be that I'm picking things that go in this direction and in this direction that ends up giving me the acute angle automatically. Well, okay, let's think back how what would have to be true in order for it to be the acute angle automatically. Well, when we think back up to the unit circle, when we're on our unit circle, cosine is the x value. So cosine over here has gone in the positive direction. So in this quadrant, cosine is positive. Over here, though, not sine, I'm sorry, cosine is now negative. Okay, so my acute angles, so this would be an acute angle in quadrant 1, or here's an acute angle in quadrant 1, going like that. Those are all going to have a positive cosine value, or cosine of that angle is going to be positive. If I have an obtuse angle, so something like this, where it's going like that, its cosine value is negative. So cosine of an obtuse angle will be negative. Well, so when we look back at this formula, the magnitude is going to be positive, this magnitude is going to be positive. So in order to, if the dot product is already positive, then we have an acute angle and life is good. If the dot product is negative, then we have an obtuse angle. Well, let's think a little bit more about that. I don't like that green pen. If I have this angle and its supplement, so say this is theta, and this angle right here, notice this little piece right here is also theta. This angle would be, well, pi minus theta, or 180 minus theta if we're talking degrees versus radians. What happens is that they have this, here's its cosine value right here, and here's its cosine value. This is cosine of that, right? Because we had a radius of 1. I'm assuming that you remember all this stuff. So this is your x value here. This becomes a negative x. So it's that same magnitude, or it's the same length, but it's in the opposite direction. Okay, so what we can do, okay, let me back up for just a second. So if the dot product is positive, life is good, we get an acute angle. If the dot product is negative, then probably what happened was, on my lines, I probably took this direction vector here and a direction vector going like this over here. Okay, whereas, so it's the same, like this vector up here would be parallel to this vector right here, but because it's going in a different direction, it's going to give us this angle instead. So our solution is to come along and say, well, cosine of theta is equal to the absolute value, well, IB calls that the modulus, of the dot product of the direction vectors divided by the magnitude of each direction vector. Oh, my 4-year-old niece is downstairs. She might be coming up. I think I answered your question. So the short answer is always take the absolute value of the numerator, or if you find your angle, you can take its supplement. Okay, good luck. And that will guarantee that you find the acute angle between two lines in space.